Hello, welcome. Hello. Welcome to today's live. I'm going to be doing part 2 of making these Boxy pouches. The first part I did last week, and you can rewatch that video. And in this week, I'll show you how to attach the panels to the zipper. So welcome. Drop a comment in the chat. Let me know where you're joining from. And if you have any questions as I'm working, let me know. So the finished dimensions of this pouch, it's about 8 inches long, about 5 inches wide, and it's about 3 inches deep. So it's the perfect size for your toiletries or makeup or jewelry. And I have 2 of these that I use all the time. One of them I use when I travel, and one of them I have next to my bed with just a bunch of like chapstick and random things. So we'll go ahead and get started attaching the panels that I made last week to the zipper. So last week I sewed up these 2 scrappy panels using shades of yellow or fabric that has yellow in it. I cut the fabric to different widths, and then I attached it to cotton batting. And these finished panels are 8.5 inches tall and 11 inches wide. So I have 2 of those here, and I am going to be attaching these panels to a 10-inch zipper. I always like to use a cotton zipper with metal teeth to avoid any plastic or synthetics. Then I have 2 pieces of liner fabric that are the same dimensions. They are 8.5 inches tall and 11 inches wide. So let's go ahead and start attaching these to the zipper. All right, the first thing we're going to do is take one of our outside pieces and lay it with the right side facing up, and the top of the panel is at the top edge here. We are going to place the zipper with the right side down on top of the panel, and then we'll go ahead and clip that into place with a few clips. And once these are attached, I'm going to get one of my liner pieces of fabric. This has also been pieced together from some scraps. This is going to go on top of the zipper into the clip. So we're making a zipper sandwich with these 3 layers, one outer piece of fabric, the zipper, and then the inside piece of fabric. And over at my machine, I'm going to put my zipper foot on, which is just a little bit of a skinnier foot. So I'm going to pop that onto my machine. And I'm just going to be sewing right along this top edge where I just clipped the zipper in the middle with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I do want to back stitch at the beginning and the end. And if you remember last week, I was using a really long stitch length. And today I'm going to be just using the regular stitch length, which I do like a 3mm stitch length is my standard go-to stitch length. So I'm just sewing straight down, and I'm moving the clips as I go. And as I get near the zipper, I am going to peek between the layers here, lift the presser foot. As I get near the zipper, pull. I'm going to peek between the layers, lift the presser foot, and push that zipper pull back to the back of my bag so that I can keep sewing a nice straight line. Otherwise, that zipper pull will cause your seam to move out of the way a bit. Okay, and I'll do a little back stitch. Okay, so these 3 layers are now connected. And what we want to do next is just open it up so that we can see the zipper again And we're going to repeat those steps on the other side of the zipper. So this side of the zipper tape that has nothing on it yet. What we're going to do is I like to lay it face up and then get one of my scrappy panel pieces and lay it right on top with the right sides together. And then line up the top edge with the zipper tape and line up the side edges too. Sometimes I forget to pay attention to the sides and things can get a little askew. So I take a moment and look at the side edges also. And these are just regular old metal office binder clips. I prefer to use these because they are not made of plastic and they're fully recyclable if they break or when they break. Next, I'm going to get one of my liner pieces of fabric and just add it into the clips. And again, I want to check that the sides are lining up and then line it up nicely at the top edge right here. By the way, these bags are now in my shop for sale. So the yellow one that I'm making today is going to be the last part of this first round of rainbow bags. So I have the orange one in the shop, purple, blue, green, gray, black. I don't have any red. I don't have any red fabric, but I have orange and purple, so they're kind of close. And today we'll be finishing the yellow one. So if you want to just get one, you can go to my website. Otherwise, you have all the skills now to do it yourself. I'm just going to go sew these 3 layers together the same way I did on the other side. With about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And if you have any questions as I'm working, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you're watching this on the replay, you could drop your questions in the comments. I usually respond to all the comments pretty quickly. Sometimes life happens and I'm a little slow, but if you ever have a question, you can drop it in the comments and I'm happy to answer that as well. I'm just pushing the zipper pull back out of the way here because I'm getting near the end of my zipper. And then I'm winding up these edges again. I'm just going to keep going straight down. And now these 3 layers are attached to the other side of the zipper. It's also a good idea to check your seam. I just finished teaching a sewing camp last week. And that was one of the important lessons for the kids was remember to take a moment and check your work and make sure that you actually caught all the fabric in your seam. And I did, so that's good. So next I'm going to open it up. And now you can see that the bag is really starting to take shape. Looks like a bag. If you wanted to do a really simple version of a zipper pouch, you could bring the outsides together and the insides together and just sew all the way around. I have a lot of tutorials that show you how to do that kind of a zipper pouch, but I'm going to be showing you how to do a pouch that has a lot of depth, that has this cool boxy look. So we have to do a few extra steps to achieve that result. So first we're going to iron the fabric away from the zipper teeth. And we want to do a little top stitch layer as well. So I'm just taking a moment and ironing right near the zipper teeth. I don't know what happened during sewing camp last week, but there is some really weird stuff on my iron. I'm not sure what the kids were ironing with it, but luckily it doesn't come off. Knock on wood, it does not come off when I'm sewing. When I'm ironing. So that's good. Okay, so now that I've pressed the fabric, I'm going to be top stitching along each side of the zipper, but I'm actually going to be pulling the liner fabric to the side so that I'm only actually sewing through the outer fabric. So I'm going to open up my zipper and lay it nice and flat and just go straight down on top of the outer fabric. I find that when I sew through both layers, sometimes the inner layer doesn't line up perfectly and ends up creating a bit of a bump or a lump. So this way seems to work a lot better. Okay, and once that side is done, you can kind of see that. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that same thing on the other side of my zipper bag. Just go straight down. And I'm trying to get pretty close to the zipper. So I'm sewing pretty close to the zipper there. I don't know how well you can see that. And now that both sides have been top stitched, I'm just going to open it up again. And what we're going to do next is we're going to attach some little pull tabs to each end of the zipper. So if you look at this design, this finished design, it has a little pull tab here and a little pull tab here. So I'm going to make one of those and then sew it onto the bag. And the way you make these pull tabs, the way that I've found that's easiest is with a 2-inch strip that's at least 6 inches. And I like to use a 25 millimeter bias tape maker. So I'm just going to get the 2-inch strip of fabric into the bias tape maker. You could also just iron this by hand, do these folds by hand and iron it. But I find this makes it a little bit tidier in the end. So I'm just pulling the fabric through the bias tape maker. This fabric is not cut on the bias. These are just scraps of fabric from different projects of mine. So if this were clothing, I probably would want to make sure I was using fabric that was cut on the bias, meaning cut on an angle. But since this is not clothing, no one's going to be wearing this. I am just using a scrap of fabric. Once I get it to this stage, I'm going to fold it in half again and press it one more time so that now I have a 1/2-inch scrap of fabric. That's a 1/2-inch strap. So I've got a little 1/2-inch strap, and what I'm going to do next is just top stitch down both ends. I'm actually going to change my presser foot back to the standard presser foot. Whoops. I'm going to pop this on, and I'm going to be stitching on both sides of this strap really close to the edge, about 1/8 of an inch away. And then I'll cut it down to size. Because I need 2 of these little straps for my bag. So I've got one side stitched. Now I will come over here and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now I have a nice long piece of strap, and I'm going to actually cut this into 3-inch pieces. So I've got my cutting mat right here, so I can easily measure 3 inches for both of these straps. This bag design is based on a tutorial that I watched by Svetlana Sotok. So she has a very similar design, but I modified a bit to make it a little bit bigger and to make it a little bit easier to sew, because she is super precise in her sewing, and most of us are not. So this way has a little bit more room for being off a little bit in some of your seams. Okay, so I've got these 2 3-inch straps, and what I want to do next is sew them onto the ends of the bag. So I'm going to place it right here, clip it, and I'll show you what it looks like here. Okay, so I've clipped it onto that end of the zipper. Now I'm going to actually open the zipper up a little bit. It makes it easier to do the second part. Place the tab at the other end of the zipper And I'm going to clip it in place just so you can see it. But obviously I'm going to have to take the clip off to sew it. So come here. Come here, little guy. I saw the new Jurassic movie last night, Jurassic World Dominion. I don't know if you're into the whole Jurassic series, but I love those movies. And I got to tell you, this did not disappoint. It was very exciting. I would highly recommend. I haven't been to the movies since COVID started, but I got COVID about a month ago, so I feel like now's a great time to be out in public, breathing with strangers. So, okay. Anyhow, so both of the little poles have been clipped into place. So you can see them there. Now I'm going to take this over to the machine, and I want to sew them really close to the end of the zipper. Probably a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch away from the, actually it's more like 1/4 inch away from the end of the zipper. And I'm just going to go over it and reverse, and then go over it one more time. And I'll show you up close what this looks like in just a second. Now I got to do the other side. Same thing. This is the side where the zipper opens, so you have to take a moment to really line it up and make sure that you are getting in the right spot here. And then I'm going to reverse and over it one more time. All right, I'll give you a close-up of what I just did. Okay, so I sewed that onto this end, and I sewed this guy onto the other end. Okay, so those are done. Those are in place. What we want to do next is bring the outer panels together and clip them in a couple spots, and do the same with the inner panels. We're going to be sewing the outer panels together just on that bottom edge, and same thing with the inner panels. We're going to sew them just on that bottom edge here. Probably don't even have to clip this, but I might as well. And I'm going to sew it with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to make sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end. This is going to leave us with a little tube. And then we work a little magic, and the tube gets turned into a bag. It's pretty awesome. Okay, now I'll do the same on this end. So again, doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance and a back stitch at the beginning. And at the end, we'll just go straight down. Okay. One of the things I really love about this bag is that you get this depth without having to cut off fabric to make boxed corners, or leave fabric in place to make the boxed corner. So this is like a very zero waste friendly design. You don't have to remove any extra fabric in order to create nice depth. Okay, so we've got both of these sides sewn up, the bottom edges, I should say. Now is where we do the little magic. So we're going to take the liner fabric and we're going to actually wrap it around the outer fabric. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to press the seams. Let me do that really quick. I'm going to press the seams so that they lay a little more flat. Normally I would do this with more of an ironing board, but you can just sort of mash it down on your ironing surface, and then just take a moment and open up those seams and give them a nice ironing, just like so. It's a little trickier with the quilted panels because the pieces are not super lined up here. Okay, so those are pressed open. Now we do repeat that. Just kind of mash things down here. Open up the bottom edge. And again, open that up and press it with the iron so it lays nice and flat as well. Just like that. Okay, so now we do our magic part. We are going to turn the lining around on top of the outer panel. So we have a single kind of tube here that looks like this. So it's sort of an inside out bag right now. This is where you can see if you had any imperfections in your cutting or measuring, which I almost always have some, minor imperfections. Nothing that's going to mess up the bag. All right, what we want to do next is feel around and make sure that the inside is laying nice and flat and there's no puckers. And we're going to actually clip the ends together just at the zipper on both sides. So the same thing over here. You want to kind of feel around, make sure that the fabric is laying flat, and then you want to clip the zipper to the center seam of your bag and just clip it in place like this. If you can get your clip to open. Okay, next we're going to need a piece of chalk or a pencil. Let me grab my chalk to mark off the corners. And this is how we're going to create that boxy depth to the bag. So we're going to actually measure on each corner near the top 1.5 inches away from the folded edge, and we're going to put a small mark on that spot. Okay, so we're going to do it on both sides of the bag. It doesn't matter where you start. I'm going to get my ruler. I'm going to pull this down a little bit so you can kind of see better here. So I'm going to mark 1.5 inches from that folded edge on this side, and then same on this side. Just a little blue mark. Same over here. And make sure you're kind of pressing your fabric, pressing the bag down so it's not super bunchy and fluffy. You want to try to get kind of precise here. 1.5 on this corner. And then we flip the whole thing over. So let me show you here. I've marked out those spots. Now we flip the whole bag over. Repeat that same process on the other side. So we measure 1.5 on this side, 1.5 on this side. Wait a minute, I did that. Okay, 1.5. I'm measuring from the fold, right? Okay. Measure from the fold, not from the raw edge. So 1.5 here, 1.5 here. I confused myself for a minute there. Even though I've made these pouches, I've probably made 20 of these pouches. I don't have all the steps memorized, so I do have to look at my notes when I make them. Okay, so now I've marked the correct marks here and here. And now this is where we create the depth. So we're actually folding the bag on this side, and we're going to be bringing the mark that we made on one side to the mark that we made on the other side. Okay. So remember, we were working on this side and this side. We want to bring these marks together by folding that folded edge in to create like a dart. We're kind of creating like a little bit of a dart, or giving it some depth here. So we're folding it and bringing those marks together. Okay, just like that. And then we want to go ahead and clip this in place. And before we sew, we'll take a moment and make sure that everything all the raw edges are lined up with each other here at the top. So I just took that middle clip off so I can make sure to get a nice line-up job here. So bringing these two marks together, and it helps to kind of let that fold go all the way down the bag. And then you want to peek inside and make sure that the raw edges are lined up with each other over here on the side. Okay, like that. Looks pretty good. And then we clip it in place. And then you can take a moment and make sure that that raw edge looks nice and lined up. Okay, and I'm just going to adjust one of them because it looked a little bit off. But now it's looking good. Now we repeat those steps on this side. So again, we're bringing the marks together to create a fold or a dart to give this bag some depth. And then we'll just go ahead and put a clip right there, making sure that the raw edges are lined up nicely with each other. And then go ahead and repeat on this side. Bring the raw edges together and make sure that, or bring the folded edges, the marks on the folded edges together. Make sure the raw edges are lined up at the top here. You can also take a moment and kind of fold your whole bag. Make sure it feels like it's lining up well. Okay, and then go ahead and clip right here. Okay. Come on, clip. Okay. All right. So now the bag looks like this, sort of turned inside out. And what I want to do next is stitch along this raw edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Let me turn this so you can actually see me talking to you. I'm going to sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and make sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end. Now we're almost done. Oh, you know what I almost forgot to do, which I often forget to do, is grab one of my no trace tags, one of these little guys. These are organic cotton I get on Etsy, fold it in half and get it in between my outer layers. I like to do it near the zipper and get it in between those layers and then just keep sewing. I haven't really found the best place to put my tags on these bags, but it works fine. Okay, once that one end is complete, I'm going to bring the other end over and again sew together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to make sure to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Okay. We are almost done with our little bag. Okay, so it should look something like this. And I'm going to take a moment, just cut off a little bit of this zipper because it's sticking out a little bit. Now we're going to take 2 scraps of fabric that are 2 inches wide and at least 5 inches long. And we're going to be sewing them over this raw edge so that you have a nice, clean, finished edge on the inside of the bag, which is always a nice touch. And the way I like to do this is to first sew it onto the bag, just doing one straight line to get this piece of fabric connected to the bag. And I'm going to follow my other seam that I made. So I'm going to follow that stitching that I just did. So right on top of that stitching, and back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and just go straight down. It starts to get a little bulky here, so it helps to have a slightly strong machine to get through some of these more bulky layers. Okay, so it's just been attached in that one spot. I'm going to do the same thing on this end of the bag with another 2-inch scrap of fabric. Again, I'm going to place it centered on that top edge. Actually, I guess this is a side. This is a side of the bag. And I'm going to stitch right on my original stitching. And I'm going to go straight down. If you're still watching, go ahead and give this a thumbs up if you're getting anything out of this. And yeah, check out some of my other videos. I have a whole playlist on zipper pouches. So if you really like zipper pouches, check out that playlist on my channel. Okay, so I've got both of these little scraps sewn into place. And now we're going to do a little bit of fussy folding to cover this raw edge and make it all look pretty and tidy on the inside. So the way I like to do this, there's multiple ways, but I start over on the side. I'm going to bring this side edge in and in, and then fold the top edge down and fold it again. This part is always a little fussy, and there's a million ways to do it. So you just want to fold that fabric over the end. And so just find what works best for you to fold the fabric so that it's covering that raw edge, and then go ahead and clip it in place, and then do the same thing on the other end. So I'm just going to fold that raw edge in, fold the top edge down. This is when an overhead camera would be really handy. Top edge down, and then fold it down again like that, and then clip it in place. And you can make sure that the rest of the fabric is covering that raw edge. So it should look like that. And the back is already attached because we sewed that there. Now I'm going to repeat those steps on this end of the bag. I'm just folding this edge in, folding this edge down, and down again, like that. So I have a tidy little spot there. And then on this side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm folding this edge in and folding that top edge down, and then folding the whole thing down again. So I have a nice tidy corner. And then I am going to clip it. Now this is the last step of the Boxy pouch. So we're almost done. Are you excited to see it when it's all done? I am. Okay, we're going to get this under the presser foot and stitch straight down close to that folded edge and do a back stitch. Again, it's a little bulky, so hopefully your machine can handle it. I mean, I think most machines can, but there's probably a few machines on the market that can't go through quite so many layers. Okay, so that side is done. Looks like that. Now we'll repeat that on this side. Get this under the presser foot, and so real close to that edge, and back stitch. I'm getting excited to see this bag and complete my rainbow. I was getting all the bags in the shop yesterday, and yellow was definitely missing. Yellow was missed. So, okay, so now this edge is completed here. Now I'm just going to take a moment and trim my loose threads. Get my clips put away. There's quite a few threads here. We just did a whole bunch of sewing there. But don't rush. You never want to rush this part because then you might cut your fabric. So I like to take a moment and try to be careful. Okay, and then this end has some loose threads. Let me just trim these. And then we get to see the final product. I'm so excited. Okay, think I got them. Oh, here's one more. This one's actually on the other side of the bag. Okay. So now comes the grand reveal. So now we just turn our pouch right side out and push it out at those corners where we just did that finishing of the raw edge. Just take a moment and push it out. And enjoy the fruits of your labor here. Sit back and admire what you've just done. I love it. And here's my little tag. Like I said, I haven't really found the best place to put it, but it's there. And then we can take a moment and trim our threads, but I won't make you watch me do that. Here is our awesome little yellow pouch. Hey, if you made it this far in the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and leave a comment. What's one of your favorite scrappy bags that you've ever made before? I'd love to hear from you. So thanks again.